Now let's talk about the UUID. Now I wanted to put this in a separate video to bring your attention to it because understanding the UUID is for quite a while for a lot of people not going to be a big deal, and then suddenly one day it is simply the biggest deal with VMware. First of all, what is a UUID? It is the Universally Unique Identifier. This is a generated number. It's 128 bits long. It's an integer. And it is what is used to uniquely identify a virtual machine to the VMware management products and tools. Now, we call machines things like XP Professional, Windows Vista 8, Windows 8 Developer Preview, that sort of thing. However, Workstation is going to recognize it by this unique identifier. Now, this unique identifier is stored in the SM BIOS. In English, that means System Management BIOS. And if you want to nerd out and go dig into some kind of interesting reading, if you find this stuff interesting, that is, even regular Windows machines, almost any kind of computer machine has a UUID somewhere being hidden, and that is how it is actually identified. Now, the UUID is generated based on interface data, meaning network cards, network information, MAC addresses, the file location, curvature of the earth, temperature of the sun in December, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different things that come into play here that it's going to be used to generate this UUID. And again, the purpose is just to be able to absolutely identify this particular virtual machine. Now, why should you care about this? Well, the good news is, for a lot of the time that you're working with virtual machines in VMware, you won't care about the UUID. It just kind of gets managed for you. However, as your virtual machine implementation grows, as you leave the VMware player environment and get into Workstation, then you go from there into using the ESXi server, and you start to really get enterprise level with it. The UUID grows in importance along with you, and it can become something that will keep you there late one Friday night. So again, this is just simply how the VMware management products uniquely identify a virtual machine. Now here's the general rule. Each virtual machine that you have should have a unique UUID. Now this is not true in most people's environments, because if we're using these virtual machines just to kind of throw up a virtual machine on a laptop and do some development testing, and then copy that machine to do some more development testing, or copy it to install something else just because we've got a copy of Server 2008 there, we may copy that and not give it a unique UUID and probably won't have any major trouble. Later on, we get into a more sophisticated network situation, we would. So the general rule is, though, each virtual machine should have a unique UUID. Now, by the way, if you're working with the VMware Player product and you look where I'm about to show you, you won't see a UUID because it doesn't automatically generate those for that, and don't worry about that. But if you ever go looking, that's why they're not there. Now, copying or moving a virtual machine will usually cause a prompt to appear, and it's going to ask you, hey, wait a minute, did you move or did you copy this virtual machine? And the reason it's asking, because if the virtual machine was moved, then the UUID can remain the same. Nothing's happened here. There's not a duplicate version of this. It can keep the same UUID and everybody's happy. However, if this virtual machine was copied, then that means there is another one that will have the same UUID, and that could potentially cause problems down the road. So if you answer the virtual machine was copied, it will generate a new UUID on the newly copied machine, and this prevents you from getting confused in your management tools later on. Now, you can control UUID generation and avoid that prompt, because there are times when you create machines and you're going to copy them and you're going to move them, and you don't want to go through this hassle of getting this prompt out there, okay? Now, before you turn this off or lock it out, make sure you understand the implications of this. You know how it goes in IT. You start with one goal. The goal changes 300 or 400 times after a couple of hundred meetings one day, and suddenly you're using a machine for reasons that you never intended to, and now you've made 300 copies. They all have the same UUID, and you've got a mess. So here's the way that you can make a moved or a copied virtual machine always receive a new UUID without throwing you any prompts or anything. You can open the virtual machine.vmx file in a text editor. Now let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go out here And if I go into my documents folder and go into virtual machines, you will see here that I can go into XP Professional, and right here is the VMX file. Now if I right click on this and open this with Notepad, you can see what I've got here. Now notice this right here, by the way, is the UUID for this machine. Notice UUID BIOS, UUID location, and those, if you check them, are most likely going to be identical. Well, this file right here, the VMX, notice I've opened it in Notepad, and I'm just going to close it back again. I'll just go open that VMX file, and I'm going to just write a line into that thing. And the line's going to look like this: UUID.action, no space, equals, and inside quotes put create. Now anytime that machine gets moved or copied, the VMX entry here will tell it, don't even waste time showing this clown a pop-up, just go ahead and generate a new UUID. If I want to make my moved or copied virtual machines always keep the same UUID, then I do the same thing. Open the VMX file, add a line, say UUID.action equals keep instead of create, and it will keep the same UUID file. Now that's a hack to the VMX. There's quite a few of those out there. That's a little hint. That's some things you can do. Be careful when you work with that. Always make a copy of it before you hack on it. But anyway, this is just a little background into the UUID, how you can use it, what it does, why you need to know about it.